This is TOS Television, your digital first Pan-African network. I am Merciful Ajinamo, and this is Africa Now. Samia Suluhu Hassan has made history as the first female president of Tanzania and East Africa. She was sworn in by Chief Justice Ibrahim Juma at State House in Dar es Salaam. She became the sixth president of Tanzania following the death of President John Magufuli from heart-related complications on Wednesday. The 61-year-old served as President Magufuli's deputy from 2015 until his death. The Tanzania constitution stipulates that she should serve his remaining 5-year term. Tanzania's newly sworn-in president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, in her inaugural speech spoke of the heavy load on her shoulders as she takes over as the country's first female president. She urged the people of Tanzanians to bury their differences and repeatedly gave assurances of stability. The president also said it was no longer time to point fingers and called for unity during the mourning period. Addressing a packed hall at State House in Dar es Salaam, the new president said she had been sufficiently prepared for the role by her predecessor, John Magufuli. Updates on the death of former Tanzania President John Magufuli has it that he will be buried on Thursday, March 25th, at his Chatuham home in the northwestern region of Geita. There will be 4 public viewings for Tanzanian citizens to have the opportunity to pay their final respect. The first viewing takes place on Saturday, March 20th, where Magufuli's body will leave the hospital for church and later proceed to Uhuru Stadium. On Sunday, March 21st, Tanzanians in Dar es Salaam will get a chance to view the former president's body. Residents in Dodoma will have their viewing on Monday, March 22nd. Mwanza residents will have their chance on Tuesday, March 23rd. On Wednesday, March 25th, Magufuli's body will be taken to his home in Chateau, where family members, people in Chateau and neighboring places will have their turn. Magufuli will be buried the following day. And in politics, Democratic Republic of Congo, President Denis Sassou Nguesso looks set to prolong his decade-long rule in an election on Sunday, March 21st, in which he has pledged to revive the flagging economy. An 8% fall in gross domestic product last year was due to the impact of COVID-19 and a collapse in world oil prices. But GDP is expected to grow by less than 1% this year. Sassou, a 77-year-old former paratrooper, rose to power in the oil-producing country on the western coast of Central Africa in a military coup in 1979. He lost Congo's first multi-party elections in 1992, but regained power in 1997 after a civil war and has now ruled for a combined total of almost 37 years. Sassou will face 6 opposition candidates in Sunday's election. His main challenger is Guy Brice Parfait Colelas, a former minister who was second in the last disputed election in 2016 with 15% of vote. Colelas has promised to bring change and tackle endemic corruption. If no candidate wins more than 50% of the vote, the top 2 will face a runoff. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS Television. You are watching Africa Now. More news after the break. Thanks for staying. Africa has increased the number of women in parliament, but still looks set to miss a global goal of equal gender representation in politics by 2030. A study by Sweden's International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, the study found that women occupied 24% of Africa's 12,113 parliamentary seats in the upper and lower houses in 2020, up from 9% in 2000. This is the report that says it's attributed to the burden of household chores and inequitable access to higher education limit women's ability to enjoy the opportunities and benefits of citizenship as men on an equal footing in the political sphere. Also, political parties are themselves deeply patriarchal, male-dominated entities that have been slow to transform. The report said this would make it hard to meet a global development goal agreed by United Nations state of achieving equal opportunities in political decision-making by 2030. The study found female representation in African parliament was slightly below the global average of 26% and much lower than women's share in the Americas at 32% and Europe 30%. There were also significant differences across the continent's 54 countries, with Rwanda having the highest representation of female lawmakers in the world at 61% compared to Nigeria, which only has 6%. The global middle class shrank for the first time in decades in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, with almost two-thirds of households in developing economies reporting they suffered a loss in income, according to two new estimates based on World Bank data. The World Bank in January 2020 forecasted that the global economy would expand by 2.5%. In January 2021, the World Bank estimated that the global economy contracted by 4.3% in 2020, a turnabout of 6.8 percentage points. In a study published Thursday, researchers at the Pew Research Center found that the ranks of the global middle class fell by 90 million people to almost 2.5 billion in 2020. That helped swell the ranks of the poor, or those living on less than $2 a day, by 131 million, Pew estimated. South Asia, specifically India along with Sub-Saharan Africa, accounted for most of the increases in poverty, reversing years of progress on this front. The losses in the Middle East and North Africa, South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa are relatively small in magnitude, each less than 1 million people, but also represent double-digit shares of the high-income populations in those regions. The projected rise in global poverty in the pandemic is concentrated in South Asia with an increase of 78 million and Sub-Saharan Africa with an increase of 40 million. Poverty is most prevalent in Sub-Saharan Africa. Some 494 million people in Sub-Saharan Africa, out of a total population of 1.14 billion, were expected to be living in poverty ahead of the pandemic in 2020. South Asia is estimated to have added nearly double the amount of people to the ranks of the globally poor as Sub-Saharan Africa in the pandemic. The percentage increase in poverty in South Asia, 75%, dwarfs the increase in Sub-Saharan Africa, which is 8%. And on COVID-19, the African Union said on Thursday that African countries should continue to use AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine, echoing the World Health Organization by saying the shot's benefit outweighed risks. The recommendation comes after more than a dozen European countries suspended the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine, among concerns over the risks of blood clots. John Nkengasong, director of the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, told a news conference the benefit still outweighs the risks and countries should move forward. The head of the disease control body added that any adverse reactions should be monitored and reported. Also, the World Health Organization's Africa Director, Matshidiso Moeti, in a separate briefing, encouraged countries to continue with their vaccination campaigns and not to pause. She added that the more people are protected, the less likelihood of mutations producing more dangerous variants of the virus. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TUS Television. You're watching Africa Now. Do stay tuned for more updates on Tigray and South Sudan humanitarian crisis and sports. You're welcome back. And now United States President Joe Biden is sending Senator Chris Coons to Ethiopia to meet Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and convey the president's grave concerns over the humanitarian crisis in the Tigray region, where thousands have died since the fighting began. Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, said in a statement on Thursday that Coons would also consult with the African Union. Coons said in a statement that he looked forward to engaging with Abiy and conveying Biden's concern. Meanwhile, Blinken said Thursday the U.S. will provide another nearly $52 million in aid to address the humanitarian conflict, but called for an end to hostilities and for human rights abusers to be held accountable. Still on Ethiopia, the country's government has agreed to the African Union's involvement in investigations of allegations of human rights violations in the northern region of Tigray. On March 11th, Ethiopian Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen met with African Union Commission chairperson Moussa Faki, where they agreed to include the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. The principle of the investigation was proposed by Prime Minister Abiy during a summit-level meeting of the AU Peace and Security Council held on March 9th, a dispatch from Mr. Faki's office said. The move came 2 days after Prime Minister Abiy addressed the AU Peace and Security Council. Ethiopia's insistence and call to her brothers and sisters to adopt our African solutions to African problems approach is a call to assert our capacity to hold one another accountable when we need to, without the domination of those asserting moral righteousness over us, he told his session on March 9th in an address labeled as AOB. Human Rights Watch has urged South Sudan to establish a hybrid court with the African Union in order to address human rights violations in the country. The rights body Thursday asked South Sudan to heed last week's call by the UN Security Council to support the protection of civilians and stop interfering with the UN peacekeeping mission's monitoring of human rights abuses in the country. In February, UN human rights expert asked South Sudan to make a genuine effort to restore stability, including bringing those who have committed atrocities to justice. In their report to the UN Human Rights Council, the experts cited growing levels of violence in recent months with hundreds of civilians killed or displaced and urged South Sudan to act swiftly to get the court up and running. South Sudan in January agreed to establish a hybrid court to prosecute human rights violations after years of delay. And now Facebook has announced the launch of Instagram Lite to Sub-Saharan Africa on Thursday. Commenting on the rationale for introducing the app to Sub-Saharan Africa, engineering manager for Instagram Lite, Peter Shinn said, connectivity in the region can be unstable, slow and expensive, making it challenging for people to have a high-quality Instagram experience. Many people were already familiar with the concept of a Lite app after the successful rollout of Facebook Lite some years ago. We started testing the new version of Instagram Lite when people across the continent started asking for the Lite app for Android. Instagram Lite is likely to gain appeal to users in locations with limited bandwidth or high data cost, especially in the developing world, he added. And now to the world of sport, all clubs in the top two tiers of French football unanimously agreed not to release players for the upcoming international break if they were forced to leave Europe. The decision was made due to the 7-day quarantine period players would be forced to undergo once they return to France due to fears of COVID-19 transmission abroad, according to the Ligue de Football Professionnel in a statement. This means African players who applied a trade in France will miss the final two 2021 African Cups of Nations qualifiers set for later this month. West African countries, especially Francophone countries, are expected to be particularly hard hit as several footballers from the region play in France. Some of the players were Wilfred Zaha of Côte d'Ivoire, Mohamed Salah and Mohamed Henry, both of Egypt, and Jordan Ayew of Ghana. And that is Africa Now. For more updates, visit our website at www.tostvnetwork.com. Do follow and like our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And remember to subscribe on YouTube. Do stay with us and enjoy more programs on TOS Television Network. I am Merciful Ajinomo. Thanks for watching.